I'm joined today by Samuel Gerber, who is a New York City-based musical theater triple threat. He made his Broadway debut in the original Broadway cast of Back to the Future the Musical, where he swung 7 full ensemble tracks and understudied 2 principal roles, including Marty McFly. He has toured the country twice, swinging in the first national tours of Mean Girls and Back to the Future, as well as working at multiple regional theaters, including the Muni and Lexington Theater Company. Oh, by the way, hi, it's me, PK. Welcome to It's All About the Process, where we get inside the creative process of theater makers and multi-hyphenates to learn how to create an artistic practice that sustains us and how to keep going when we feel like giving up. I'm an international acting, voice, and artist development coach and a former New York City theater professor. If you've ever been coached by me, then you know I love talking about creativity and the actor's process because it's all about the process. Let's jump in. Hi, Sam. Thanks for joining me today.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
Today, I would love for us to start out by hearing about your journey from undergrad to your first professional gig, which I know a little bit about because I was your teacher at the time. And I
Oh,
remember you
yes.
sharing about it, but I would love for you to share those stories with us about what that process was like.
Yeah. So I started my undergrad at Marymount Manhattan College, moving to New York City at days after turning 18 years old from California. I was very clear and very deliberate my freshman year that I was purposely not auditioning. I had worked as a kid in LA for a little bit. I had an agent growing up as a dancer, and I knew that moving to the city, I wanted to not pursue just dance and I wanted to work on my voice and work on my acting skills. And so I was very adamant that freshman year of college, I would not audition for anything aside from like summer stock stuff going into between semesters. And so that's all I did is I just like sat and focused and undergrad. And then I ended up auditioning for summer stocks that year, and booked the summer season in Playhouse in Newark, Ohio. It was such a wide variety of range too that season. And then I think I went home for maybe 3 weeks to school. I was excelling in class and out of class, and I was filling my schedules and all of those things. Um, they were starting to be a little bit like, hey, we would support it if you want to. And I started shopping around for an agent. And because I had one as a kid, I had these contacts of their New York branch, and I went in for a meeting, and the meeting didn't quite go as planned. I was
Do you want
expecting
to say
to,
more about that? Yeah.
yeah, I will. And so by this point, we're now kind of in. I don't remember the exact day, but it was nearing winter of my sophomore semester. And I go in and I'm just kind of like, I'm very green. And as we know, in the Marymount program is structured for the 4 year experience. It really doesn't lend itself, which is why they ask you not to audition, because they don't really teach you the things that you need to know until you start ending the 4 years in terms of how to get agents, what that looks like, what that really means, what is your type, what is your book, all of these things that we're so used to hearing in our industry. But I feel like in the 2 years that I was there, I never really understood. And so
No, that's
I'm kind
really
of in
only
this
seniors that are getting
ever asked to
exposed
do
to
that.
that kind of, yeah.
Yeah, and obviously voice lessons and you're working on those things and you have to, and we're auditioning for musicals, so we have some sort of a book, but then it's always tailored to the exact shows that are that season, when that are coming up and X, Y, and Z. But
But not how
um
to actually market yourself and talk about, like,
yeah, and
talk
like
to
what
people
that
in
is.
meetings and yeah,
Yeah. And I quite
yes.
literally I remember her just being like, okay, well, what shows do you see yourself in coming up? And I was like, well, I don't know. I don't know what's coming to Broadway, which is also such like a weird thing to ask in a way because it's like we never know what's coming to Broadway, you know? And I was very clear. I was like, I just saw Mean Girls not long ago, a few months before that, right when it first opened. And I looked at her and I was like, I do feel like there's one specific track in Mean Girls that I am very ripe for. And I was very adamant. And she was like, okay, what else? And I was like, well, I know Casey Nicole's working on the prom. He had just done Mean Girls. That feels very up my alley. I don't know anything about the prom, but like that could be an option. And the high schoolers, duh, I'm 19. And I just remember her kind of being like, "That's it," and I was like, "Okay, well," but also like nothing on Broadway at that time, aside from the normal Wicked, Hamilton, which were also part of my answers. The big juggernauts was anything that I would feel like I'm a part of right away.
Right.
Like I love Kinky Boots. It was open at the time, not technically what I feel like is a show for me and my skill set, especially at that time. Like I wasn't gonna lie and be like, here are 20 shows that I feel like are perfect for me. And
Right.
she was like, but you're in school. And I was like, I am in school. She was like, would you leave? And I was like, for the right show, yes, but I'm not gonna leave right now. And I'll just say that I walked out of that meeting with no agent. But the idea was there, the impetus was there. I was not gonna search for agents really. I was not going to try super hard in that world. But I was like, okay, well, I think I'm now ready and I can start auditioning. And I got the go ahead from some specific teachers, and I kind of went around the program a little bit for a while, and then I just started auditioning, and I knew that because I love school, and I've always loved school, and I think you could attest that I was there a lot. I was not one of the kids that was, you know, disappearing. But what a lot of my professors I don't think saw was like I was also flying out sometimes to help out dance conventions on weekends,
Yeah.
and like I was disappearing every once in a while. It wasn't just me, the normal kind of student who's just there, all the time, only doing school.
I also remember you being very like you had a voracious appetite for learning. Like you
Yeah,
were
I love
really
it.
willing to soak it up. It's not like your brain was somewhere else thinking about, "Oh, how am I going to, book my first gig?" You were really there to learn skills.
Yeah, and I knew that I was never going to drop out of school unless it was the gig of a lifetime. Like, I was never gonna leave for a non-union tour, and I was never gonna leave for a regional production. I was never gonna do any of those things. Like, it's either Broadway or, like, a first national tour, and that will be the only thing I leave for. Like,
Mm.
otherwise I will be in school, and the focus is on school. And I was like, "I'm only auditioning for things that are my type, things that I know I would book." And right around that time, Mean Girls had posted that they were having an ECC, as they have to do. I don't remember if it was school had started yet, and I just remember going in and they saw non-union, which I was non-union at the time. They saw non-union dancers, which happens more often with boys, but with male presenting than it does with female presenting. And they kept me to sing. They called me back like 2 days later to sing, and then which was the round before finals.
Do you
And,
remember what you sang?
uh oh, it was an awful choice, yeah. It was an awful choice, and I'm embarrassed to say what it was. And it was
Okay, then
something
don't.
I remember no, I remember it was something I had just started working on in voice lessons.
Okay.
But they were asking for pop rock, and I hadn't gotten there yet. My voice has never really lended itself to pop rock. I am a musical theater boy. Um, I sing like a musical theater boy. I still am working on my pop rock kind of sound and feel, and which is funny because the boys in that show like don't really sing pop rock at all or that feel. It is like a pop rock lens in musical theater, but like it's not pop rock in the slightest.
No,
So it
it's
was
like
just so funny
musical
that they
theater
were
pop.
asking that.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially the two men the two male roles. I mean, Aaron doesn't really sing at all, and Damien is like musical theater, and
Yeah.
then the ensemble boys don't sing. I mean, we were singing, but it's all normal musical theater kind of sounding stuff. So it was weird to me, but whatever. I was new. But I didn't have anything. So I remember, yeah, it was a song I barely knew. It didn't feel like something I would present. It felt like this is what they're asking for, so I'm just gonna do it.
Right.
And I got cut and cut, snipped right before finals. And then about a week later, I knew someone who was in the final round, a friend of mine, and he texted me right after the finals, or like a day or two after, and was like, "They cut everyone. They cut all the boys. They thought everyone was too old. The people that
Wow.
casting had pulled together and kept. By the time they were actually presented for the team, the full team, the team was like, everyone's too old." Is what I was told. Whether that's true or not, who's to say? But they either wanted smaller people, shorter people. I feel like that those kind of get tied together. Um, Size
Yeah.
and age kind of can sometimes do that, especially with an ensemble. And a few days later, they posted about an open call, and I was like, okay, I'm going to go back in because I know they at least liked me enough. And at this point, I want to say we're like mid March by now. It was a very long process. It was months and months. And this is second semester of me in your class. So we've now done a full, nearing our year of your class. And I go and I dance. I do my normal, the same combo. And I guess I sang. And they ended up keeping six of us. And I got an email a few days later. They were like, we still can't find boys. you're strong. We really like you today." And also, like, I have no agent. They're emailing me, and I'm just like,
Personally.
"What does this even mean?" Like, I remember calling my friend and being, "What in the mix means?" Like, mix of boys, does that mean the mix of headshots and resumes still left on the I was like, "I don't know what that means." She's like, "It's good, it's good, it's good." And I was like,
It's
"Okay,
good.
great." And they were like, "We're gonna ask you to come to finals, but there are gonna be a few just so you know, there will be a few days before you come in for finals. We're gonna try to find this last group of boys." And then great. And of course, the week of final auditions of finals
Yeah.
at school. And I just remember being like, "Okay, how am I gonna make this work?" So I told some professors that I needed to in order to miss classes. You were included in one of them because it was during your session. That I was like,
Yes.
"I might make it back, I might not." But I'm ready to do the final if I need to. And you were like, "You know what? I have another session the next
Yep.
day or 2 days later, and you can come." I think it was maybe not final, it was maybe the week before, maybe it was like our final working day of
Yeah.
class, I think
But I was like,
before
come
final
to another
presentations.
section and yeah, get
Yeah,
the info. Yeah.
yeah. And so I did, and I went to that final, and I remember walking in, it was, dancers that I had watched, seen in shows on tour growing up, had seen in multiple Broadway shows, and I just remember looking around that room and being like, "Holy shit." I
I'm in the
am
big leagues now.
I am here
Yeah.
sitting here at 19 years old with people that have been working since they were 16 on, the Newsies national tour or this show or this show or this show. And in the room, it felt great. In the room, it felt like I was keeping up. It felt like I was doing the things. But I'll never forget Casey Nicola coming in right before we did groups. And he was like, "Okay, so we're looking for like 3 boys. Everyone needs to cover." And I just remember being like, "They didn't ask me to cover." Like, my email says ensemble. I didn't prepare a packet. I didn't, and he was like, "Everyone should have their stuff." And I was like, "Not me." So I'm right before groups, right before groups. So I'm like, "Damn." Like, now I'm just gonna dance and they're gonna cut me and whatever. So they do, but they don't cut me. And then I come in and I do remember I sang, and it still is my pop rock go-to cut today. Kelly Clarkson's Breakaway,
Nice.
which felt, and I sing the bridge into one round of the chorus. It felt very real at the time and very breaking through the walls and like getting past my things pulling me back and just going and moving in through, through space and time and like going toward my dream. Right. And that was something easy to latch onto as an actor, something easy as a me to latch onto, and young and youthful, and something that's, inspiring. And so I sang that, and then they were like, "Do you have something else?" And I'm like, "My book is thin, right? Like, I don't have one yet." Um, and and I'm like, "Yeah," and they're like, "Something more musical theater sounding." And I was like, "Okay, great." And then I sang, I think I like her from Summer 42, which had just existed in my book as something I was working on in class. And it felt kind of in the world of Mean Girls. It's a good amount of lyrics. It's quick. It's up. It just kind of moves. It's not really super dramatic in
Yeah.
terms of range or anything, but it's a little funny. The cut is a little funny and has a little joke at the end. And they laughed, and I was like, "Success." And
Nice.
then they looked at me and they said, "Can you take this packet, go outside? We know you haven't gotten this before. We've never asked you to do this. We know that. Can you learn the cut of Where Do You Belong and the bathroom scene right before Where Do You Belong as Damien? Can you learn this? If you can't, no worries, but can you try? Do your best and come in and we'll just workshop it." And so I went out, a couple people went in after me to sing and do their things. And I literally just with the phone in my ear trying to learn the song. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not a music theory kind of guy. I can't plunk something out quickly at least.
Were you able
And
to
I
like
just
quickly mark up the scene?
yeah, yeah. And I was
Yeah.
using the tools that we had just gone over. It was just so quick that it was just
And
the
we had just
fastest
learned
things I
that
can do.
too. Like you
Yeah,
guys
we had
had
just
just learned
worked
those
on that.
skills.
Yeah.
Marking
And
up
I was
text.
like,
Yeah.
"Great, what can I do?" It was just circling operative words, anything that could compare and contrast, which I feel like always worked the most for me. Like that was something I could easily break into. I could easily find something to, whether it was the perfect choice or the right choice, whatever, but it was something that I could do. I could make a choice here. And the scene kind of is a list. And so I was able to just easily list something, which we went over so much, and make that different from the rest of whatever I was saying. And then just kind of like, I can kind of go up here and go down here, which um, I don't remember necessarily marking that stuff, but I was kind of like, wait, I can just play a little bit.
Yeah.
The bathroom scene's so fun, and it's such a range of who Damien is. That first kind of intro, he is silly and fun, and I was like, "Great, I'm just gonna be silly and fun." And yeah, my favorite
Yeah.
things.
Amazing.
Uh, and I'll never forget sitting there. I mean, it's Casey Nicola, it's the whole team of directors and choreographers. I mean, Tina Fey's there, Lauren Michaels is there from SNL, producer, as our producer. It's people from people from NBC. It is a stacked room. It is maybe 16 or 17 people in that room. It's the first national tour.
How did that feel?
Oh, it was bonkers. I was so nervous that whole dang day, and it kept getting longer, and I was trying to get back to class. It was just like, and I think I emailed you, and I was like, "Hey, I'm not gonna make it. I'm not gonna make it back today. I'll see you tomorrow or in 2 days." And I made it back to my acting class at 4. Made it back and did my class, and I came in next day for you for that extra session, and we were working our monologues and doing stuff, watching everyone, and right as you ended class, I, like, walked over to get my bag, and I reached down, and my phone was vibrating in my bag, and I got the call from casting in your class.
That's wild.
Um, and I just remember, like, holding up the phone and, like, being like, "Oh, oh," and then I just backed into the corner between the mirrors. And my friend Webb looked over at me and he was like, "Oh, it's the call," from across the room. And I was like, "It's the call." So I went on tour. I turned 20 on the day of on the day of my fitting, and I was on the road in 3 weeks later.
What do you think people misunderstand about swings in general?
I feel like what's obviously, and even I was like this too, like growing up and watching shows, and I would get upset when an understudy was on or a swing was on. And I didn't really understand what it was, I didn't understand what it meant. And I think what's most misunderstood really is that feeling of like you're seeing the backup. You're seeing the second choice or third choice or fourth choice, right? That kind of idea of like they're not the name listed, so I shouldn't have to see them. And I remember trying to explain it and having to explain it before I did it was crazy, to like family members and people who just don't understand anything about theater and how it functions and how a long running show can work. And like I kind of had to describe it that way. Like essentially, I am the backup. Essentially, I am the person who isn't doing it every day. When they need me to, I will, and I have to. But I don't
And
just
you
do it.
can.
And I can, but I don't just do it for one person. I'm doing it for 9 people,
Yes, exactly.
which is also a different world than just understudying. And people who only understudy is great for them. And I know so many people who like thrive in that world where like they want their ensemble track and they want 1 or 2 principal covers and like that's it. They want to have a much better understanding of what their day is, have a much better idea of what they're walking into in the building, how they function in the building. Whereas like I like getting nitty gritty. I like the split track. I like the idea of I'm playing 4 people right now because we are down 6 people. And that is the only way
And
this
that's
show
even
can function.
possible. Yeah.
Yeah, and that it's possible, and, like, it just happened mid-number, and I'd watch the person leave the stage, and how do I get the set piece that they need the same time that I have to go do this thing? And how can I do that creatively without just running around looking like I just had my head chopped off? But, yeah, I think that kind of idea of we aren't the backup necessarily. We are the front line, we are the trenches, so to speak, but we are the only way the show will function. And especially when you're at performance 1,000, especially when you're at first preview. Like in my career, like I've had swings go on first preview. My fellow swings on, just right off the gate.
How many swings were there for the tour Mean Girls?
Mean Girls, we started with two male swings, two female swings, and one principal standby.
And then what about Back to the Future?
Three men, two women. You have vacation swings coming and going, and you have replacements coming and going. And then we added, I think most of the run of Mean Girls, we added a female swing, which
Mm,
also was me for a while. I was the only boy to cross gender swing Mean Girls for an extended period of time, unasked and unpaid for. Nothing
ah,
extra. Nothing. No, it fit in my 10 equity allotted swing tracks. There is no rule
10.
against it. Yeah, 10. And understudies
Did
don't
that,
count for that. So
right. Did that
yeah.
change from pre-COVID to post-COVID? The number of tracks?
Yes. Yeah, there was never a limit.
Okay.
There was never a limit pre-COVID. And then it added to 10 around that time. And then there became the split track rule, which is dumb and doesn't work. And no one ever touches five tracks at once because most shows are not built for one person to
For
touch
that.
five tracks because an ensemble, like in most modern day musicals, ensemble members are in everything. And you can't function without five
Mm,
people. But that was a rule that came from COVID with like a show like Music Man, where there were 50 ensemble members and they were split tracking 8 people in a number of those swings because they would cross. They would do crosses and
I
traffic
could.
patterns and things, and they could.
It
Whereas
lent
like a
itself
show
to
like
that,
Mean
yeah.
Girls, yeah, where there's only 6 men, I'm never gonna touch 5 of the men in the show in one track, like in a split track. It's not possible. And then there was language, unclear language about how much of the show you have to do as those 5 people. And it's like, well, if they're all in all the numbers, then like how do you how can you do it all? Like, and then it's moot. And they are in negotiations about it constantly and
Mm.
talking about how they can change that um and that rule.
I would love to hear a little bit about your system for learning and retaining choreography, blocking, vocals, lines, etc.
Yeah,
A
so
few
crazy
people who I've
because
interviewed had talked about like, oh, we use note cards or I write everything and then I like distill it down into bullet points so it's on a one sheet. But obviously, your
you're about to get a
background
crazy
in
answer.
really? Okay. I was going to say, but I think your background in dance, like, I know that you're a very kinesthetic learner and
Yeah,
also a visual learner, like, being able to have that kind of combination of things serves you best.
that's exactly what it is. Yeah. um I'm still figuring it out to this day. I am It is something that will always be changing. It is something that I feel like when I first started swinging, I didn't really understand what it was. I read the book, which is Broadway Swings, How to Cover the Ensemble in Musical Theater. Great book. It's been out for a few years. Interviews dance captains and swings from the business, directors from the business, choreographers from the business.
Oh, amazing.
Um,
I'll put it in the show notes.
yeah, yeah, I'll send over the link. It's fantastic. It was a godsend at the time because it was the only kind of concrete thing I could hold in my hand, and, like as a how-to guide. But every time was trying to read the things and how, like, read the ways people do it, it was never working for me. The ideas wouldn't work. I literally could not like sit there and scribble things and then be like, I got it. Like I'm just not that way. And I'm a dancer. So like obviously choreography wise, I get up and I would learn it with the people when I could. Um Mean Girls moved very fast. Back to the Future, I was a little more able to kind of be up in the room and moving around and stuff. But Mean Girls was very fast and obviously I was so young and overwhelmed that I didn't quite know where to focus my energy. I was trying to learn everyone at once. And then it was like, do we have priorities? Do we not have priorities? I'm trying to chart 6 male tracks while learning everything. Should we be focusing specific people? Like, who are you going to put on first? And we eventually get priorities and who we are technically supposed to go off for first in an emergency if it's, one of those situations. And that gets better, but the show's busy. Boys are everything. The whole ensemble's and everything. So it's just like every day we're learning something new. Like I was going home and trying to review things and I was just becoming a mess, an emotional mess. And then what I have found works for me is I will get up and learn the choreography. And if it's a tricky thing, I'll write it out. I'll try to write it out, but I'm very bad at notating choreography. It's never been something I've been good at. And I realized that when I was learning Mean Girls that I was writing way too much and I was missing stuff. Like, I'd be trying to notate the choreography, that I would, like, miss a blocking chart or, like, something, like, when I don't need that. If it's in my body and I can do it right now, 4 years later. Like, I could still do Mean Girls 4 years later.
Yeah.
There was no time to look at anything. So note cards were like the only kind of option because we were in everyday clothes. We had pockets, we had backpacks. If it was like we were thrown on 5 minutes or halfway through, act one, we could throw something, we could like throw note cards in our backpack and get in that desk and like read during the school scene, you know? Back to the Future, we had a lot more breaks. And so what was very nice is although the boys in Back to the Future had to climb up 2 flights of stairs to change every time we changed, yes. um, we had breaks where we were sitting down most of the show. When I was really still learning the show, I'd have my iPad and I'm a video person and we had videos of the show. And so I can just watch the number once and I can do it. Like
Wow.
that's just how my brain is. I will just watch the number, even if it was a track debut that I had never done, which I was thrown on mid show, my final swing track. I had never rehearsed the track somehow in the 6 months. I'm the third priority. It was my ninth track of Back to the Future, the musical. It was like, I'll only ever do this. And
It
then it
was
was
low on the
like,
food chain. Yeah.
I was literally watching in the house and I happened to be like, I'm just going to leave after the first car sequence. I was like talking with our associate director. We were just sitting up in the box. And I was like, oh, I'm going to head back. As I hit the stairs, I walk back into the backstage area and they're like, I was just coming to look for you. You're on. I was the only swing left. I had never debuted the track before, never rehearsed it. And if I had rehearsed it, I ran it once in the studio when I was like 4 months before that.
Wow.
It was like I've never touched it. And I was like, and the dance captain's coming running down the stairs. She's like, "What do you need?" And I was like, "Just tell me where to go." I said, "If you have the video, pull it up. Let me watch it once. Give me anything pertinent." I was like, "I know the choreography. The choreography's in my bones. We're like 6 months in." And I was like, just follow me around the rest of the act one. There were a couple things that I had never done before, props I had never touched before in rehearsal, never worn, never put a costume piece on. It was like a whole quick change, a 20-second full costume quick change in the
Nice.
chaos of at the end of Act One chase sequence. But yeah, I am in terms of once it's cycled
Documentation
in my
or yeah, yeah.
brain, um, I didn't look at maybe for the last year of Back to the Future, I didn't look at a single thing. Once
Hmm.
I've debuted everything and I've done it a couple times, I am like,
It's
it's
in
in
there.
my body, it's there. There's a couple things, like a number or two that I know are tricky, and
That
I'll
you
watch that.
review? Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I'll review it. I'll watch it, like, the opening of act 2 is all traffic and formations, and everyone's doing different sections of choreography at different times, and it's like, you're doing it alone, and then you're in pairs, and then that pair becomes a group of 4, and then that group of 4 breaks apart and becomes groups of and it's like, "Ah!" And everyone's dressed the same, looks the same, you don't know who anyone is, um, and, like, that is a number that I would always, for a while, review if it was something I hadn't done in a while. But at that point, we were in the show so much that it was our normal. I would just shout at like one of my swings who wasn't on, and I'd be like, "Hey, you just did this yesterday," and it's me today, and I'm like, "Do I cross down?" And they're like, "Yeah," and you're like, "Great." That was the one question I needed. I know the rest of the
Done.
number. Just what's this one thing that my brain is blanking on? Yeah, I'm not a big document person. I
Awesome.
don't. I use the charts. I do look at charts. Um, that dance captains make, the Bible, if you will. But when I'm really learning, I do write it out, but it's not as detailed as a lot of people are. I'm so much of a doer, and
Hmm.
that it's like I have to just do it once and make the mistake, and then I never make it again. Kind of vibe. Yeah,
I'd love to hear a little bit more about what you think. What are the skills that make someone a strong swing in terms of craft, in terms of personality, in terms of mindset, and
yeah.
what did you feel like you came in with, and what did you feel like you gained by doing it?
I think versatility is always going to be first and foremost. I think I was kind of saying earlier with my audition process of Mean Girls, of like they knew they liked me, but they didn't know exactly where to put me. I wasn't one exact track, and I could kind of be them all, and I can do them all, but, like, in their creative mind, I wasn't the person who should be doing it 8 times a week, which was also very hard for me to learn as a young kid. Like, I was like, "Why do you think that I can't do this when you're asking me to do it in an emergency?" Or someone's out
Yeah.
for 16 shows and I'm doing it for all 16 shows, and, like, you see it and you like it, and then you're like, "Can't do it," which is such a weird thing. And I think that was just myself talking to saying that to myself of, like, they don't want you to do it. But
Yeah.
it is,
More
and
of
this
a
and theater
mindset.
is a puzzle piece. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I think whoa, the braid is gone.
Yeah. You were talking about versatility.
Oh, yeah.
Um,
Yeah, and
and
I
like what
think
other skills?
yeah, versatility is way up there, and being comfortable in that, like, uncomfortableness is, like, so necessary for a swing. You have to want to be pushed. You have to want to be uncomfortable. You have to be able to do well under pressure, right? It's kind of like the skills of, like, a good test taker. It's like a good test taker doesn't always have to have the correct answer right away. They have to be able to deduce the answer. And that is what swinging is. Sometimes you go on that stage and you do not know what's next. You know the choreography, you know the vocal harmonies, but you don't know where you're going. You are looking down, being like, what costume am I wearing right now? Who am I? Because it's my fifth person of the week. I played someone else 2 hours ago who's on the other side of the stage wearing something completely different. And now I'm this person wearing this, saying this, singing this, but I'm about to turn around and walk a direction and I don't know which way to walk. And in that moment, while you're dancing and singing, you have to figure out where you're going next safely
Yeah. What do you think the
and being
skill
able
is that
to,
somebody could like train to? I mean, you don't really train to become more versatile. I mean, of course, you can train like, I can do these things with my voice, I can do these styles of
right.
dance, I can do this, acting wise. But is it that you're actually cultivating self trust? Is it a sense of being able to improvise and say yes and be able to move forward without fear? How
Yeah,
would
I,
one
I
go about training for that?
I do think a lot of it is trust. I remember very early on in some of my debuts, just like having to, and even looking at my fellow castmates and being like, listen, I don't know this 100%, but I will get through this safely and I will get you through this safely. And I'm throwing you in the air and you will land and I will put you down and I will not drop you. And if I mess up some of this choreography because it's very close to what I did yesterday, and this is my first time ever doing it, and I've never rehearsed it with someone before, we'll get through it and I'll get you in the air and we'll do all of these things, which I think is this kind of trust in cast member, right? But then it's also the trust of myself of like, if I really am out there and I don't know what I'm going to do, I'm going to leave. You know what I mean? Like, I I will walk off that stage if I know it's gonna be dangerous. It's being able to think on the fly like that. It's being able to, like, be okay with it not being right always, right? How do I problem solve that quickly and know the show that well that when I do make the mistake, it's not the end of the world.
Yeah. And
Um,
that level of adaptability, I think, is something that's
yeah.
been a common thread
Yeah.
through all of the other
Yeah,
swing
and I think
interviews.
something that that I have always struggled with, and I'm trying to be better, and I got a lot better, and it's something that the term was brought to me during Back to the Future by one of my dearest friends. And it's the idea of being a goldfish and being able to forget quickly, being able to, and not in terms of like long term memory forget, but short term memory forget. Right? It's this idea of it already happened. You got to let it go because the
Yeah. What's the
second
next
that
thing?
the rest of your show starts being, oh, no, what do I do? Where am I going? I already messed up. I don't want it to get worse. The second you start going down that rabbit hole, your show is done. And I remember having one of those on the Mean Girls tour. And it was an awful blizzard in St. at the fabulous Fox, no less. Beautiful, 5,000 seat theater. And I gave the one of the worst shows I've ever given. And it was just awful. I had like not done the track in a while. I was swapping tracks back and forth. It was a track that I had always had trouble with. It was one of the hardest in the show. Physically, it was just one of the most physically demanding, a lot of lifts, a lot of things that depended on this person. It wasn't
Yeah.
as like fun feature wise, it wasn't like the hardest like dance features. It was like this person lifts everyone, does all the hard lifts, does the crazy technical like moving of things that are there wasn't much for us to move in Mean Girls, but like when it was him, and it was
Mm.
something that like my brain just like I would panic. And it was just one track that any of the other tracks I'd be like, okay, great, we're fine. And then this one track, every time I would do it, I would just go into this kind of panic. Um,
How
I
did
just
you
remember like,
manage that, or how did you,
well,
yeah,
intermission
overcome
was
that?
me just sobbing. Intermission was me sobbing in the lobby, in the stage door vestibule of the Fabulous Fox in St. Louis, and I just remember people coming up to me like, "It's fine. Your show's fine. It's really not that bad. Yes, there are technical errors, little things, but like, no one's hurt, no one's upset. You didn't like, is it your best show? No, but that's the gig." And as someone who gets very upset when I don't do my best work, not that it's perfect, but that it's not best that I could do, that was very hard for me to get used to. And I think that comes with doing it. I think it comes with, I kind of got over it by just being exposed to it more, being able to fail more, being able to come into a new show right after that and do the same thing again, learn 7 more, 9 more tracks and do them wrong. And they get used to it's that, right? It's that like I got
Failing
used to
forward,
being
yeah.
uncomfortable. Yeah, that I got used to making mistakes,
Yeah, the discomfort of
and just
learning,
being okay with
huge.
it. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that's a hard thing to teach, the discomfort of learning, and, like, we
Yeah, and
try
I
to
will
embed
say
it, but
to wrap that up to wrap this question, I think, like, in an education setting, the way to do that is by having that ensemble class in terms of swinging. It's like having that ensemble building class and making them swing. They don't need to swing every track of a musical number, but make them swap between 2. Make them swap between tenor and bass line, an alto soprano harmony. Or even worse, make them split into that third. You know what I mean? Like the 3-part split in just this section, but doing a different section of choreography. Great. You know
yeah.
this vocal harmony, but now I'm going to teach you all new choreography, an all new staging version. Just like people, and that's even helpful with in terms of like doing the same summer stock show every summer. But it's a new creative team. It's a new set of choreography, but it's the same show. And how does your brain deal with that? Um,
Mm.
and
Yeah, I wish you guys could teach, I mean, all of you that I've interviewed, I'm like, what would you teach in a course if you had a course on how to be a swing?
Yeah, and that can be as simple as like your dance class, making formations and then having someone have a partner and they have to know their
Swap
version
out.
of that number and you just tap in and tap out. Same thing with learning if you're creating a show at school and like casting it understudy. They don't have to do it, but like allowing someone to know the track and giving them a run, giving them 1 day of rehearsal of a 3-month rehearsal process. You can't give a swinger an understudy 1 day where they can just hash it out. You don't even have to, you can give the people a day off. You could give the people who are doing it every day of the week a day off, or they can come sit and watch and have them like actually be taught, not just being like, get up on your feet and go, but like having the associate director or something, the student director walk someone through the track, of being like, great,
Oh, it's super valuable
let's just
for all
walk through
people
that. Like,
involved then.
yeah, today you're going to learn act 1 and we're going to, the bones, the choreography already. I'm going to walk you through it as you would in an understudy rehearsal. And here's how, and teaching an associate director or student director how to run an understudy rehearsal is going to look in the future.
Yeah.
Um, and how quick those have to go and how, it's not a 3-week rehearsal process. I took over the Marty cover 6 months into the run. I learned it by myself with our associates. I had no scene partner. Luckily, I knew the
It was
show so well.
yeah, I was gonna say it was just, plug and play then for you.
Yeah, it was me in the studio alone.
Wow.
In a studio, I think I had, like, 1 main day on deck, touching everything that he touches in the show, which is everything because he's in the whole show. I had 1 day with all the technical elements of the car and the clock tower sequence of an 8-minute long sequence of all tech.
Yeah,
My put in was a stop and start as Marty. I didn't even get a full run of the show. He's only not in 2
yeah.
scenes if you skipped him. I was like, "Huh?" I was like, "It's only gonna save us, like, 8 minutes, but I guess, like, yeah, let's
That's
just not
incredible
move that
though.
set piece." Yeah, and yeah, yeah, it's just how do we teach that is, I think, just actually teaching it. It's really just allowing students the opportunity to do that,
Yeah.
to swap vocal harmonies every once in a while. It doesn't have to sound good. It's not that's not the purpose, It's like, just make them
No, it's to have
do
the
it in a
experience.
rehearsal and just be like, "Now sing the other part." everyone learn everything, because what's the harm of everyone learning everything? Because one day, especially in a school show, someone might go sick and you don't have an alto line. Someone might be
Exactly.
out. And if one person could just be like, "Oh, I can sing that for this number. That's okay. I know the solo line." And that just kind of being the, rather than it being like they're hungry for my part, they only want to know it so that they can, so that I can go down and they can save the day. Like, if everyone just starts to learn everything, and like that's my note to students often that I try to give is learn everything secretively. No one has to know that you're doing it. If you want to challenge yourself, if you want to do this in the future, there's no reason that you can't do it yourself in a rehearsal room. You don't have to prove it. Honestly, don't prove it, because that'll just sometimes piss people off. But like, if you can just go home and run the musical number by yourself as someone else, just for fun, then like this is probably something you should do.
Yeah, that's how you keep raising the bar for yourself. What do you do in between contracts to maintain or improve on skills that you want to, yeah, get better at? Or like, how do you keep your mind and your body resilient?
Yeah, and you know what? You're catching me at a weird time where this is the first time that I have never not worked, where I've never not been. I'm very lucky for the last 6 years of my career, aside from COVID in the middle of that. But
Hmm.
I worked straight. Like, we came back from COVID. I toured for a year and a half with Mean Girls. I had a week off and I started rehearsal for Back to the Future Broadway. We ran for a year and a half. I had a week off and I was shipped out to the tour for 8 months. I came back. I had 3 weeks off. I was at the Muni for 3 weeks. I came back for 5 weeks in the city with no job. And then I was back and forth from the tour vacation swinging. And now
But
I'm in
also,
this
even
period of
during
like,
COVID, like
I was,
during
I
COVID,
went to
you were,
school. I was working with you.
yeah, you were working with me remotely on
I
monologues
was
and
taking
text
voice lesson.
work. And
And had dropped out of Marymount and I went back to school at that same time and got an English
Mhm.
bachelor's degree. Yeah, I'm figuring it out. I'm figuring out what my non-work thing is. I gym 4 or 5 days a week. Even if I'm in the show, I still am gymming on top of the show. I think that is, like, important thing for the body. As a
Yeah.
dancer, when you're throw people in the air and do lifts that you haven't done in 4 months, like, just keeping that strength all the time and that endurance there, especially as a swing. I am trying to get better. I hadn't taken class in like 5, 6 years because I was just so busy, and I have started that again. I need to find and get into voice lessons. I'm like in the process of these things,
Yeah.
and I'm just trying to kind of try all that I haven't done. And I'm like wanting to go back into tumble and do those things for me, even just because I like flipping. I don't necessarily want to do that 8 times a week, and that's
Yeah.
gonna hurt my body. And but I do wouldn't mind doing it for fun every once in a figure that balance out now that
Yeah,
I'm,
you gotta fill your cup. Yeah, for sure.
yeah, back in the city and not working.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Are you ready for rapid fire?
let's do it.
And then we'll wrap this up. All right. A ritual you do before stepping on stage.
Hmm. As much as I can, I when I don't know the show or when I'm still learning or I haven't done the track in a long time, I try to go on deck 15 minutes before our call is, lift call is or whatever, and I speed run the show as fast as possible. I don't run choreography, I just kind of in like in my brain formations, and you'll literally see me run. I'm just like, how fast can I do the show? And I make it kind of this game. And if there's
Hmm.
any moment I don't know, I look at it before the show, obviously, but I'll skip over it and I'll look at it. And that's my test. It's my test of
Your
how well
test. I
do I
love
know
that.
it? Do I know what I'm doing? And that's what I mean by like, I don't necessarily need the papers anymore. It's like, it's in my body enough that if I can do it quickly, I can do it in the real runtime of the show with the details. It's just kind of go, 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 go.
Amazing. A skill you're trying to improve currently.
For me right now, it's my voice. It's like getting comfortable, getting back in lessons. Voice stuff has always been very emotional for me. Has always brought up a lot of emotional things that I've always been trying to work through, and that uncomfortableness for me has always been
Hmm.
harder than it is with my body. And
Right.
dancing. Moving forward right now in this break, like that is what I'm going to try to focus on is reworking my voice, trying to make the uncomfortable in my voice comfortable.
What's a creative habit you swear by?
Mm, I think playing. I think allowing the freedom to play is something I think just like, especially as a swing, when you only get to do things a certain amount of time, so, and you're just kind of being put on the spot. You don't get the direction, and like I am someone who has always asked for more direction for swings. Like if the note's given to our principal our principal, the understudies never get it. If the note's given to the ensemble member, we don't always get the note. And so my thing is like play with until you get the note then. If they are
Yeah.
able to play and make that mistake, then like we should be able to in our own terms, within reason, obviously, always. But I do think like allowing myself to like play just a little bit more and not copy and not do something that someone else is doing all the time.
Yeah. And that way you're like cultivating this skill in like being able to make strong choices that are really coming from your imagination without feeling like you're just, in the crudest terms, plugging and playing what
Hmm.
somebody else does. Yeah.
Yeah.
What is a failure that taught you the most or a setback?
Oh, yeah. I think I'm like focusing on my first swing on in Mean Girls. Out of the blue, it was the day of a put in a different track. It was our first put in. I was put in and only had rehearsed one track. And then that night was debuting a completely different track, costumes I had never put on, things I had never done, props, set pieces I had never moved. And that I still have trauma with to this day. I'm still like, hey, that one. Um, And it got better, and it eventually, but yeah, I think having it
What did
and it
it
was
teach you?
I was so young, it taught me how to swim, really,
Mm.
and looking back on it, it taught me how much I can get through on my own without it being perfect, without it being necessarily right. I essentially was learning the show in an hour and a half. I learned the track.
Yeah.
Like, I just had the dance captain walk me through everything as quickly as possible, lifts I had never done before, and I knew things were gonna go wrong, and I survived. It was like that,
Yeah.
like, resilience that, like, things can go wrong and the show will survive. As long as I'm locked in and paying attention to the things I have to pay attention to, we will get through this 2.5 hours together. The show will happen.
Yeah. And
Um,
that strengthens your confidence too.
yeah.
Yeah. What's a dream role?
Mm. I would love to just do something new. I would love to, like, work on something from the ground up, whether that's a principal, or it is an ensemble track, or swinging a show from the ground up and dealing with 25 changes a day. And, I've only done shows that were previously produced, and they weren't carbon copies. We were dealing with changes. We were having rewrites on Back to the Future from London, the London version. We were rewriting things every day. Mean Girls Tour was a conglomeration of their DC out of town tryout and the Broadway show, but they wanted to kind of match together. So I've always dealt with new pages. I've always dealt with new lyrics and things, but we've never really looked at like, oh, we're redoing this whole musical number today. And I feel like that is something I really want to do from a creative side as well. Just like watch that process. Um,
And like originate something too.
yeah, yeah, and
Yeah.
be on a cast recording and like have that
Yeah.
vocal feature. Less a role, less like one specific thing for me. I've never really been, this will be the best part of my career is this one role.
What's a note or a piece of advice you received that changed your work forever?
Surprisingly, and if you know me, this isn't surprising at all, less is more, essentially. Do less. It was given to me in terms of my dancing, really, in a show, and it was that I was pulling focus because I was giving my one and it was given at a summer stock where the dancers were not necessarily all we were not all the same level. We were a myriad, and it was just we know you're good. We know you can do it. You don't have to work that hard.
Yeah. We need
Um,
you to
and you
blend a
can
little
give me
more. Yeah.
70%. Yeah. You can give me 70%. And when you're in the front of this next number, go for it. But right now, you do not need to give 100% all the time. And it did blend in to my swinging
Oh,
because I learned very quickly, and it was the same note I also got when I started Mean Girls. Once I kind of was in my first show or two, I think that my debut, my dance captain even said it to me then. She was like, "You dance only at 80% today." She said, "I've seen you in rehearsal. I know you can dance harder. I don't want you to, because
Mm,
your job right now is not to dance. Your job is to make the show happen.
yeah,
And so it's that
to create
same
the
idea.
world. Yeah.
Yeah, and even just to survive it, you know, like there is
Worried
so
about you
much
burning
going
out?
on.
Yeah.
It's the first time you're doing the show, and I did, and we finished Whose House Is This? The big party number in Act 2, where we're jumping on trampolines, on couches, and it is big jumps and into squats and floor work. And I remember we had to sing off stage right after that, and it was my first time ever running the number in full. I had never run the number in full. Um, and cramped. My legs just started cramping. I was so deoxygenated, and that was it. Yeah, I danced too hard, and it's something I still agree with today. I know I don't have to do my 100%. It's just not necessary all the time.
Yeah.
And sometimes I have to oomph it. Sometimes I'm tired, and I got to oomph the amount of energy I'm given to keep myself in the show.
Right.
But yeah.
Awesome. What keeps you hopeful?
I think as a swing right now, I do think we are getting more and more appreciation. I think mostly from our fans, less from the union, less from the Broadway League. Sadly, as we've seen with them, I mean, negotiations recently, they've been wanting to cut pay constantly. They're wanting to cut understudy pay when understudies go on for leads. They're wanting to cut all of these things, which is crazy.
Yeah.
And I think as we've begun to share, as we've begun to share that with the public, with our fans, they start to rally behind us. Um, and I think what's been so great, we've had so many great fans, especially with Back to the Future, um, that were so invested in our studies and swings, almost more than the principals. That there's this wonderful girl named Stephanie who would buy stand front row seats on the left. It was like a rush seat, a $45, $50 rush seat. She watched every person do almost every track in the show. Um, and early on, when I noticed she was coming a lot, like, have you ever done a spread? She was like, no, but I have most of the things written down. And she was like, but that sounds fun. And I was like, try it. And she made a spreadsheet and tracked performers she saw who, and I think she saw the show like 50 or 60 times or something. And
Yeah.
she has seen
Mega fan.
almost, yeah. And she on in every track. Same with someone who Broadway or two who like even came out to the tour and and like trying to count how many tracks they've seen me in on the tour. It's like we're beginning to penetrate the fans and like get that this like push for us to be as appreciated as everyone else.
Yeah. The visibility with, things like social media. And I mean, like that really helps your case.
Yeah.
What's one thing you wish you could tell your younger self?
It's always for me is breathe. It's accept the things and breathe through it. Um, and it's hard and it's gonna be messy, but like just
Would echo
before
that.
that curtain comes up, breathe.
Hmm.
It's just crying because you messed something up and of your life. Just breathe it out. Breathe in the applause. It's of give and take constantly.
What's one word that describes your process?
Messy. And it always will be. It has been. I am someone who I can't focus well on like one thing for a very long period of time. And I can get it done and I can you give me a deadline. I am great with a deadline. Um yeah, I'd say messy.
It sounds messy, but also organized too.
In a way, yeah.
Yeah.
Messy, yeah.
Uh,
Messy, but not like it's tied together. Something's tying it together.
Finish this sentence. Being an artist means.
Mm. I'd say creativity. I think there's freedom in that. I think there's something right, there's something wrong. And I don't mean that as in completely correct, but I think like a lean to the right. It's leaning it can encompass something that's over here in a right way. And you can look at something and be like, as an artist, and be like, but is that right? Is it serving a purpose? Is it wrong? Is it not serving someone's purpose or the story's purpose or something? Yeah, I think being an artist is at its fundamental core all about creativity, which obviously is true. But I think that encompasses all of the mess and all of the different things that we experience every day as artists. And I think because to me, being an artist at its fundamental core is also just storytelling. And you don't have a story without creativity.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time.
Of course. Thanks
I've
for having me.
loved catching up and yeah, hearing about your journey and being able to share that with this audience.
Can't wait. It's exciting.